Welcome to Beyond the Breakwater, where just beyond the crashing waves of fear, discomfort, and doubt lies the greatest potential for life transformation. We want to guide you into the open waters where the calculated risk you take becomes the turning point for you or your organization to thrive. So draw up your anchors and prepare for departure in this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Breakwater. My name is Lyndsay, and with me I have Senior Pastor of Messiah Church and Executive Director of Elevate Community Ministries and Gateway, Ed Dorner. Welcome.
Thanks, Lyndsay. Always great to be with you.
Yeah, this is awesome. So last week we asked everybody what is one thing that they have done differently in the last 6 months. So Ed, what's one thing you've done differently?
That's a great lead-in question because we did ask everybody to think about doing something for the first time. So last weekend after we had recorded, I was working on a home that my son had bought. And it's a really steep roof, and it's a 2-story house. And we had to somehow get these anchors on the roof so that we could strap in with a harness and be safe as we're, 25 feet up, standing on a ladder. And so I threw the ladder over the roof, and my son was standing on this patio, and he was holding on the rope. And his name is Ben, and I called over. I said, "Ben," I couldn't see him. "Are you holding the rope?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Hold on her for dear life. I'm about to put my life in your hands." And I just grabbed the rope on this side of the roof and started walking up the roof, and I was slipping along the way just to get up to the top of the roof, and then sat down on a burning hot roof.
In 90-degree weather. And there's something exhilarating about, wow, I didn't die. I didn't fall. And it was kind of scary. Mm-hmm. It's really scary when you have no harness. You have no harness, and you're 25 feet up in the air. Yeah, I don't know if that was more scary for you or for Ben, because I don't think I'd want to be the one holding the other end.
He was flexing all of his muscles, holding on for dear life.
That's funny. Yeah, that's quite different. I don't think I've ever done that, and I don't know if I ever would.
I'd do it again.
So let's go back and talk about what is Beyond the Breakwater. What is that image? Can you just paint the image for the listeners who are maybe tuning in for the first time?
Yeah, Beyond the Breakwater is what we've talked about. The whole image, everything is built on Beyond the Breakwater. And simply being in the Great Lakes region, because we're in Michigan, the breakwater is the barrier or the transition between the high seas and the channel. The channel meaning like the river. It's inland, and it's inland where you have all the boats. That's where all the boats are tied up. And you don't want 6 feet, 10-foot waves crashing on those boats because it would destroy all of them. So you've got the river where the boats are tied up. Then you have the breakwater, and you go through the breakwater, and that's when it starts to get a little bit choppier. And then you have the open seas. And so we're talking about Beyond the Breakwater, and we want to encourage people to do things for the first time, not just individually, but as a church, as an organization, to look beyond the breakwater and go through the scariness of, oh my goodness, we're in the breakwater. This is getting a little scary. It's getting a little wavy. And you're starting to hold on. And then you get beyond, and it's the beyond. This is where the church is called. And the church is called out to serve others out in the community.
Yeah, that's a perfect visual, and it's something we're probably going to attach a lot to. There are so many analogies that we could use that image of. So I kind of want to hang out in the harbor a little bit for right now. Today we're going to talk about serving. I think that's something that everybody is familiar with, whether you're an individual, whether you're a business owner, whatever banner you're calling serving, whether it's philanthropy, charity. That's something we all have this innate desire to do. So Ed, where would you venture to say that most businesses or churches, nonprofits, where are they serving? What kind of ministries or things are they doing?
Yeah, let's break that down even a little bit further, because I think everybody has this desire for meaning and purpose in their life. They really want their life to matter. And I think we've all come to realize that if you want your life to matter, it's usually by doing something for somebody else. Unfortunately, we live in a time that we're so saturated of when we say serving other people, what we really mean is I want something out of it. So I'm going to do something for you, but I really want something out of it. Like I really want to feel good, so I'm going to do something good for you. Because it's not about doing something good for you. It's about I want something. And if you think about our society, every time you see free, it's not free. They want something from you, and they're using something to get something from you. And I think sometimes churches can get caught up in the same thing. Hey, we're doing a rummage sale. We really want you to come. Why? Because we want you. We want you to come back. We want a relationship with you. So I think even when we talk about serving, I think we have to unpack that just a little bit more, just for a couple moments here. Serving to me is when you do something for somebody with no expectation of a return. When you go to the restaurant and you're served well, why are they doing it? They want a tip. Mm-hmm. So they're going to serve you really well because they want something from you. But serving is different. Serving is when you get to do something for somebody, but you have zero expectation. You're not doing it so they come to your church. You're not doing it so that you can get a good feeling out of it. You're doing it because Jesus said that the Son of Man came to serve and not be served. And that's what God's called us to do, is to serve one another with no expectation of a return. And so I think the church is faced with a decision about the who. Like, who are you going to serve? And I know that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, is who should the church be serving?
Yeah, I think that's such a good setup, because it's no matter if you are a church or a business, Jesus had a lot of followers. And so when you look at how to become a better leader, and Jesus as our example, a lot of what he was doing was serving. So you mentioned that businesses, churches, they're looking at serving as like, I want to get something out of it. Can we just hang there for a second too? Yeah. So what is it if it's not a tangible? That's a really simple thing to say, like, I'm a waitress and I'm going to serve you, and I'm going to serve you really well because I want a really good tip. But I think a lot of folks are saying, no, like, it is in my heart, like, to serve somebody, and I don't want anything. I just want to help. And I think the best way I know to do that is through feeding, is through a rummage sale, is clothing somebody. And a lot of folks are serving the community, but what kind of thing are they maybe subconsciously receiving back from that?
I think we all have a good feeling when we get to serve somebody. I think the difference is when we're doing it because of the feeling that we really want to get, or is it really having the difference in somebody's life that we think it is? I know we're going to talk about this in other podcasts, and we're going to really flesh it out. But if I would just give a simple little thing here, that when you serve somebody, say in poverty, you give food, and churches love to give food out. What they don't realize is that they're actually robbing a person of their dignity. So now what happens is that if I come to you and you have food, and I have my hand out, like, may I please have some food, and you get to feel like a hero because you're handing me food, but what you've done in the process is you've actually robbed something from me, my very dignity as a person. And so, and again, I know we're going to talk about this, but if you would sell it to me for a nickel, just a nickel, now we have a business deal. You didn't rob me of anything. You served me by helping me to buy it, but you let me buy it from you. And now it's a business deal. You didn't rob me, and you actually helped me by serving me. So I walk away feeling amazing because I got to buy it for myself, because that's what I want for my life. I don't want to rely on other people. And you get to walk away with a great feeling of having made it possible by using your resources to make it possible for me to do it for myself. That's the biggest difference, as opposed to if you gave it to me, now I feel less than, and if I feel less than, I feel like I'm robbed.
That is a fascinating model and a challenge. I would say prior to my coming here, I had never even heard that was a possibility. I think a lot of people categorize people based into two groups of the rich and the poor. And when you want to help somebody, it's like, I need to give it to them for free because that's all I've ever known to do. And that seems helpful. But nobody ever thinks of the twist of what that can bring somebody through, of it robbing them of their dignity. And I think a fair share of people have been brought through that themselves, just the shameful feeling of receiving something for free sometimes. So when we're talking about breaking people into two different groups, the rich and the poor, I would assume a lot of businesses, charities, philanthropies are targeting the poor. Are there more groups beyond that, or who would you venture to say that businesses, churches, nonprofits, who are they serving primarily?
I think every organization who's doing something for anybody has to decide who they're serving. If you go to a car dealership, are they high end? Are they low end? Are they used car dealership? Are they brand new? If they're brand new, are they Audis? Are they Chevys? What are they? Everybody has to decide who they're choosing to serve. Churches have to choose who they're going to serve. And sometimes the easiest ones to serve are the ones who don't have anything. And Jesus did talk to us about this, about loving people and serving people, visiting them in prison and giving them cold water. Jesus talked all about serving people that are less fortunate. And I think sometimes churches take that as marching orders, like, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. But I think it makes it hard when churches are choosing to serve those in poverty, because I don't think they really know how to do it. And I think by just handing it out, they're feeling amazing, and others are not feeling so good as the recipients. So churches are choosing because it's the easiest to serve those in poverty. Now, in America, it's 2023 when we're recording this. Poverty is $30,000 for a family of four. So it's equivalent of almost $15 an hour. So if you take a person who's working, take a single mom who's working, $15 an hour, probably will have to work 2 jobs to get 40 hours. She is truly in an Alice situation. Now, I guess I'm already introducing what Alice is. So poverty is 30,000 and below. Then there's this group, and only 27 states are using this. United Way said it seems like poverty is not the best thing to use anymore for when we're discerning people groups. And so they did more homework, and they started to unpack who's above poverty, but who's not wealthy. And so they came up with this acronym called ALICE, which is Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. It's the people that are working. And in Michigan in 2023, it's those who make between $30,000 and $59,000. Now, United Way is still using 2021 numbers of 59,000. We've adjusted it a little bit for 2023, and we use the numbers of if you make between $30,000 and $72,000 for a family of four, that's ALICE. And that means in the state of Michigan, it takes almost $36 an hour, 40 hours a week for a family of four to survive. Now, how many jobs? 70% of jobs pay less than $20 an hour. So how are people surviving in the state of Michigan? And because this is in 27 other states, so there's this new people group that we've all come aware of, like, oh, Alice, who's Alice?
Could you say that that's the middle class?
That's a good question. I don't know if we could say that's the middle class. And the reason why is that the other thing that United Way did is they said, what would be a thriving, like you're doing well. You have enough money for savings. You have enough money for vacations for a family of four is about $100,000. So you almost could say that the middle class somewhere, is $100,000 and below, because $100,000 means, oh, I'm saving. Maybe I have a college education fund for my kids. I can take vacations. We can eat out. And they're living comfortably, not wealthy. They're living comfortably at $100,000 or less. So I don't think I can even use that term middle class, because where would it start? Mm-hmm. Would it start, it almost seems like it could be, but nobody's ever talked about this. But I think from our work, if you want to use middle class, I would say 30,000 and below is poverty. 30,000 to 72,000 is Alice. Middle class would be maybe 72,000 to $120,000 for a household income. And then you have those that make above that.
Interesting, because I had never like heard of Alice prior to my coming here either. And so I think as we're trying to tie information to maybe pieces that we've known, and you say like the rich or the poor, like middle class is a buzzword too, but Alice is just completely forgotten. It's under the radar.
It is. And I really want to focus on Alice, not the middle class,
Yeah.
because Alice makes this really easy because we use three categories. There's those that are in poverty who need help, and it's less than survival. And then you have Alice who are surviving. And then when you get above Alice, beyond 72,000, that's how we categorize them right now. They're above 72,000. That means they might have a little extra. That means instead of trying to just survive, now they can do something with it. So it's the difference between when you're just trying to get food on the table, it's really hard to think about anybody else because you're so consumed with how do I feed my family? How do I get my child to the doctor? Do I have enough gas in the car? What do I do when I have car repairs? You're so consumed with just living. But when you get above $72,000 for a family of four, you might have a little extra that you can start thinking about, hey, maybe I can help somebody else. And so this is why we're using those three categories.
So when I think of who businesses, who churches are serving, a lot of things that are coming to mind are probably things that are targeting poverty. I'm thinking like rummage sales, food pantries. There are maybe a few that I can think might be serving Alice, being maybe Goodwill or Habitat for Humanity. Could you share a little bit about where you started with Messiah and the church that you're pastoring, what that process looked like?
Well, we had a coffee house on Main Street, and we took all the tips. We had about $1,500 in tips every month, and we bought food. So we were giving away food. We gave away 275 tons of food in, 5-6 years. And then we interviewed the people that we were giving it to, and that was a game changer for me. That changed the whole trajectory of my ministry after that, because we interviewed the people that we were serving. We fed them breakfast, and then we had a food giveaway. And while we're sitting around with a group of 10 people, and they asked, I was asking them, what do you like about the food giveaway? What do you not like? And finally somebody just said, can I be honest with you? Sure. We hate this.
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? You dictate what we eat. You strip us of our dignity. We're diabetic. A lot of this is sugary. It's always expired. And I felt horrible. I mean, I thought we were doing good, and I realized we weren't doing good at all. And she said, you know what we want? I said, I don't have a clue what you want. I mean, at this point, I didn't even know how to answer. I don't have a clue what you want. She said, we want a store we can afford. And I was like, wow, that's a new concept. They didn't want the handout. And then she said, I have a question for you. I said, yes. She said, when is the last time you ever had your hand out, palm up, like a beggar? I said, I haven't. She said, then you will never understand me and how much we hate it. I was feeling really small at that point, almost feeling like we had failed all of these people by giving them food. And we have never given food after that, ever again, because I didn't realize how much damage we were doing. And so that kind of like set me on this track of, I need to know more. If you want a store you can afford, who are you? And then I found out about this United Way and the Alice population. And Lyndsay, Alice has radically changed us, completely changed us, that we let all the government agencies take care of poverty. That's what they're designed for. Non-discriminatory. Give it to anybody. Give it to everybody. It doesn't really matter if you qualify. Give it to everybody. When you're talking about Alice, now you're working. And Alice is so amazing because we meet him every day. In Michigan, it's 1 out of 4 people are in the Alice population. In Michigan, 71% of female head of households are living in our Alice or below. 51% of male-led households are in Alice. 51% of seniors are in Alice or below. And so there's such a large percentage of the population that's sitting in this Alice. So we've been kind of just learning more about Alice. And what we're finding is that there's nobody in this place. Now, there are some. I mean, like we talked about a rummage sale. Alice and below is probably going to rummage sales. Goodwill, they're going. Salvation Army, to the stores. They're going because they're getting deals. They're getting, like used stores, resale shops. That's where so many of Alice is going because they can't afford new, but they don't want to get something free. And so they're going to places that they can actually afford.
Yeah, so I think the question is too, like we have to assess what we're doing. And as we're talking about beyond the breakwater and doing something different for the first time, getting out beyond the breakwater, a lot of churches have had to assess, and maybe they haven't yet. Maybe they're still just kind of coasting. But the question being like, all right, what can we do differently? Maybe we've been doing these food pantries time and time again. Yeah. But if we're looking at kind of strategically approaching how we can serve people, when I think about serving people, it also comes with a listening ear, right? Like we have to know the people that we're serving. We have to know whether we're helping them. And just like the story that you had shared, if you hadn't asked that question, you wouldn't have known the people that you're serving. And you probably would have just continued doing food pantries, using all of the money that you could to give things out for free.
Right.
But it wasn't helping at all. And so I think as we're serving, we have to do it with open eyes and open ears and ask questions.
I can give you an example of that.
Yeah.
When you talk about Beyond the Breakwater. There was a time that we used to give away a lot of toys, Christmas toys around Christmas. So can you picture this? Put 1,500 toys on a little boat, okay, maybe a little medium-sized boat, and you go past the breakwaters, and you want to help people by giving them Christmas toys, toys for tots. So your boat's loaded with all these gifts. And who's coming up on the boat is everybody who's willing to take something free. And then you say, okay, let's make a little change. Let's sell these toys for $1, $5. And all of a sudden we took our 1,500 toys and we started to sell them instead of giving them away. And you know what happened? The clientele radically changed. Because you know who started coming up on the boat? Your restaurant workers, your fast food workers, your waiters, your waitresses, your hotel workers. There are so many people in grocery stores working. They began to come. And so all the people that are actually serving us every day in some capacity, in some kind of a job, are all the ones that would like come up to the boat and say, can I buy some Christmas toys for my kids at a price that I can afford?
What did that do for the person that bought the toys?
It completely transformed them because now a parent had the desire and the privilege to buy a toy, wrap it up, give it to their child, and every time that child opens up that present, they have a feeling that I bought that gift. And they're going to think about that every time they see their child playing with that gift. They're going to remember that they actually bought it. It's a different feeling from, yeah, I got it free. And every time your child does that, it's a reminder. Here's the key. When it's free for a child, you have a reminder that you couldn't buy it. That's reminding you of your poverty. And it's reminding that you couldn't even buy them a gift. What parent wants to live with, I couldn't even provide a Christmas gift for you. But if they got to buy it, see the difference? Now they have the joy of watching their child play with that gift over and over and over again. So Alice, I want to go back to Alice. There's nobody in Alice. There's like nobody serving Alice. Look across the country, nobody's there because everybody wants to do it free. But here's the other thing that we didn't even talk about. Now let's talk about the above 72,000. I've asked over 100 pastors a question. How does the church reach somebody who makes above 72,000 if they don't believe in Jesus? And you can hear the crickets.
I was just about to say.
They don't know what to say. They don't know.
They probably have some, like an answer of maybe community groups or...
They're fishing. They don't know. We have an answer. See, when you go into that above 72,000, and remember, they want their life to matter. And so you invite them, how would you like to make a difference in someone's life? What do you have in mind? Would you give us a Christmas present? Just one. Could be $2, could be $200. We're going to sell it. And so they go and they buy Christmas toys, and they buy one additional toy, and then they give it to us, knowing that we're going to sell it. And they just made a difference in someone's life, the parent having that joy. So as a church, all we're doing is going into the above 72,000 and saying, would you like to change someone's life? Now, here's what we're noticing. It's something called donor fatigue. Donor fatigue is when you are above 72,000 and you give a gift and it goes to somebody who's just taking it free. There's not always the gratitude. Sometimes, and there's a word for this, it's a legitimate word, entitlement. You know, like somehow I'm entitled to this free toy, and then it robs the donor of a good feeling when somebody feels that they were entitled to what you gave them. And then the donor doesn't really want to give anymore because they're like, wow, I'm giving something that's, you know, this means something to me. I'm giving up and buying an extra Christmas present so that you can have it. And you're not even showing any gratitude. So now the donor's robbed, the person feels entitled, and nothing good comes of it. So we've just completely changed all this. We're going to the donors and saying, if you give a gift and we sell it, we can promise you the person who buys it is going to forever be grateful. When you can buy a tablet like an iPad for $15, when you can buy a bike for $10, for a brand new bike for your child for $10, how can you not be thankful?
Yeah, I think when you think of entitlement, it's you can't be thankful for the thing that you are expecting. And so when you're blowing people out of the water with, I can buy an iPad for $15, what a deal. What a deal. And I just bought that, and the reward that it gives too. And I think what's so fascinating about this whole model and how we are getting to interact with people who are Alice and below, we're getting to interact with people who are 72,000 and above and who would never, ever want anything to do with a church because they're not looking for Jesus. I think the question or maybe a defense that can come from that is, okay, but now you're turning a church into a business. But no, this is so amazing because we are getting to meet people that never would have walked through the doors of a church before. And we're not expecting we're going to serve you and now come to our church and sit in these seats, but we just get to serve you and meet you and love you.
Right. We get to be Jesus to you, and just, I think that's what God said. Love him with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then love our neighbor. How? As ourself. How do we want to be treated? Don't we like buy one, get one stores? I mean, don't we, when you go in and you buy something and you get something free, what does it do to us? We walk out, we're like, holy cow, I got a great deal. That's the feeling that we want to give Alice. We want Alice to come in. And here'd be an example, like, so they come in, they buy the tablet for $15 and like, what a deal. You know, then they go to the next room and we give them teddy bears. Now that's free. And we give them stocking stuffers and maybe even an extra toy for the child. And they walk out like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. I paid $15. I got a tablet, and then I got a stuffed toy, and then I got. And then we just treat them like royalty. You know, they come in, we've got nice cheese and cake and Christmas music and people wrapping their presents. And so we have a chance to serve them in a way that they're not used to being served, like royalty. And it's the most amazing feeling. And who does most of that serving? See, think about it. We invite the people above 72,000 to be the servants with no expectation of a return and do something for these people to make Christmas extraordinary for them, but never robbing them. And then what do we do with the money? Oh, that's the fun part. We just take the money, we go buy more toys and bless more people. And give those away, like to kids along the way too, just as a simple little gift, you know, like as an add-on.
Man, this is really good stuff.
It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is just a small piece of the whole iceberg. We've got a lot more coming. We want to talk about Alice and get more in depth on who Alice is. I think that might be something that is rattling people. Like I said, you've heard of lower class, middle class, the wealthy, but Alice is really that forgotten group. So I really want our listeners to walk away knowing how to look for Alice, knowing how to listen and serve well and serve with what people are really needing. So Ed, before people go in this episode, what do we want people to do?
I think in this situation, I would encourage everybody to look up Alice. What state are they in? Look up Alice. I know Alice is in Michigan. It's in 27 states. So you can actually look it up. Just go United Way, Alice, and your state and see if it's there. And if it's not there, it's okay. Just grab another state that's similar to your state that you think is fairly comparable, and look up all the information for those. And that's going to give you a great starting point to understand. Everybody knows poverty is 30,000. So what everybody has to know is in their state and even in their community, what is that threshold? 30,000 to what? If you're in a really affluential place, it might be 80 something. If you're in a little bit more of a poverty-stricken place, it might be 30 to 50. So for us, it's 30 to 72. And I think everybody has to find out what is that number? And then what are you going to do to help serve somebody in that area? And I think my second challenge is look around and see if there's anybody in that space and they're charging, but they're charging what people can afford.
Good stuff. All right, we'll see everyone next week. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater, a podcast of Elevate Community Ministries. Don't let the conversation stop here. You can email us at hello@beyondthebreakwater.org. We would love to chat with you, answer questions, plan a visit, and help you take your next step. We'll see you next week.